So I also need to introduce Al-Jahid and Abu Nuwas, who I have translated as Popeye and Curly. They will also be with us today. You have fallen through a portal in time and space. You're now in medieval Baghdad at the height of the Abbasid Empire. You're a wealthy merchant, and you've decided to throw a banquet and invite all of your wealthy merchant friends. A knock comes at the door. A man is at the door, a beggar, dressed in outlandish blue robes. His turban is cocked at a jaunty angle. He smiles at you. He looks hungry. You probably came here to learn about the new University of Exeter's master's degree in Magic and Occult Science. You can learn about that on this website. And instead, you're in 10th century Baghdad, face to face with an uninvited guest. He might be here to trick you or steal from you or take advantage of your generosity. And this is one specific example of the kind of thing you can expect from these kinds of people. It's a translation of a medieval Arabic story about a man who pretends to be a caterer. He buys candy, takes it to the invite-only party, and then returns the candy afterwards for a refund. So it's the kind of person that you got to watch out for. But this unexpected visitor at your door may be a holy man in disguise. He might not even be a human being. Perhaps he is an angel. Perhaps he is one of those shape-shifting entities made of fire that you've heard about in the Quran and the Hadith, one of the jinn. But even jinn can be good Muslims, and if you want to be a good Muslim as well, you better open up the door and let the unexpected guest inside. This is how I found myself where I am today. I let a medieval Arabic party crasher into my heart, and the next thing I knew, I was running the University of Exeter Center for Magic and Esotericism, and a member of its Transdisciplinary Psychedelic Research Group on a campus that seems to attract weirdos like a magnet. I don't need a slide to illustrate that last point, just look around the room. So this is our website for the Center for Magic and Esotericism. You can check out a list of our members here. There's faculty members from around 10 different departments. We have regular meetings and events, most of which are open to the public. We have a mailing list. Please do explore. And this is the site for the Psychedelic Transdisciplinary Research Group, of which I am a member, kind of a more tangential member, but as I said, a proud member. And like us, they have now launched their own master's degree, which Peter mentioned in the opening ceremony. This happened by pure synchronicity, by luck, but the two degrees are very much related. We share some of the same modules, and I believe that we share some of the same sort of pedagogical philosophy, which is what I want to talk to you about. Why is this happening here? Some say it's the ley lines. People who wouldn't normally see themselves in academia are attracted to the University of Exeter's growing reputation as a place where academic rigor is balanced with something more unexpected, something weird. This is a picture of me with some of my magic students on the first year of the program. We're there in visiting Exeter's cathedral. I included this picture because I like the way that it represents a very diverse kind of group of metaphysical worldviews. I know these people personally, they're quite quirky. And we're there right in the center of the Temple of Orthodoxy. So kind of metaphysically party crashing Exeter here. The Magic MA welcomes people in who might not otherwise feel invited to the Ivory Tower. And to my mind, this goes against the history of esoteric ritual magic itself, which is often restricted, often to men in a state of ritual purity, elite literate men. By contrast, we're kind of opening up the doors more widely to the academy and inviting people in who might not otherwise feel comfortable. I see some of the thoughtful and compassionate work being done in Exeter's Psychedelic Colloquium, similarly pushing back against narratives that only the strongest, only those capable of taking a heroic dose and taking it like a man, are welcome to the psychedelic party. There's something quite inclusive and friendly about them as well, I found. So both in the study of magic and of psychedelics, we are extending an invitation to ways of knowing from other cultures, other types of bodies and minds that haven't always felt welcome in Western academia. Our Magic MA is based in the lovely building right over there, the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies. Why is that? Partly because that's where I'm based and I set the degree up. But it's also because the medieval Arabic-speaking world really was the centerpiece of the history of magic. Of course, they developed a number of ancient literatures, profoundly influenced the literature to come in the medieval and Renaissance West, for example. So if you want to pick a logical place to base the history of the study of magic, the medieval Middle East is that place. So kind of decentering the focus from Europe to a more logical location in that way. We have been doing a little departmental party crashing, a lot of departmental party crashing. I don't know if you can see all the module codes there. I've woven together a number of different departments in a way that has never been done before, actually. Sorry, I'm looking for my bottle of water. Here, I have my own bottle of water, thank you. And this really has involved a little bit of like bushwhacking on the part of me and my students, cutting down these barriers that have divided our departments from one another. It's just been necessary to study magic in an interdisciplinary way. But it's also in keeping with our overall sort of party crashing philosophy. In selections from the art of party crashing, which I showed you a picture of a little bit ago, that features a party crasher named Bunan. And somebody asked him, have you memorized anything from the Quran? And he said, I know one verse from the Quran, and that's give us our lunch. When I first read that, I thought it was a joke, an anecdote, that's all it says. I just thought that was a funny joke. I later learned where this verse comes from. It comes from the Surah of the Cave. It is a moment where Moses says to his servant boy that he's hungry, give us our lunch. And the servant boy says, but the fish that I brought for our lunch has miraculously revived and it has jumped into this mysterious place where the two seas meet. So Moses and his servant boy go back to this mysterious place, and along comes the wise man al-Khidr. Al-Khidr is a very mysterious kind of trickstery prophet who goes on to perform a number of seemingly evil or nonsensical acts that turn out to be working God's will and with the kind of wisdom of secret mystical knowledge. So some people have interpreted this mysterious place where the two seas meet as the place where the exoteric sort of rigorous study of the law that Moses represents meets this more mysterious, esoteric, mystical type of wisdom. Now remember, it's that little joke from the party crasher that led me to this place. That's how I came to this study. So the party crasher's trick worked on me as well, in exactly the way that it was intended. And it also is a good sort of metaphor for what I think we're trying to do on these degrees, and that we're balancing a rigorous academic discipline with indeed something that is a little more difficult to define, a little more uncertain, reaching into the unknown. Now, this is a cartoon in which Popeye is overdosing on love poetry, so his friend Curly runs and gets him a book of pious world-renouncing asceticism as a kind of medicine. This is an embodiment of a medieval Arabic sort of truism that, you know, even balances and types of health and ways of knowing help us be basically healthier, more balanced people. So medicine is literature and needs to be balanced, literature needs to be balanced like medicine needs to be balanced, essentially. In our case, that means, on the one hand, a type of knowledge that isolates certain phenomenon, divides them, analyzes their structure, dissects them with a scalpel. So philology and laboratory science, for example. And on the other hand, knowledge that swims in a sea of relationships, that gropes in the darkness, like embodied knowledge or the wisdom of trips and dreams. And I'm saying we need both of these things in equal measure. Of course, the question on the second point is how to do this responsibly. And so one of the questions that comes up is how to work as practitioner scholars. So this article in the New York Times, it was not one that I agreed with its premise at all, but it does illustrate the difficulty of navigating, studying something that when you're taking your work home with you in a very personal way. This is also something that scholars of magic have really been wrestling with. So the Trans States Conference is about this, about practitioner scholars of magic, balancing those two ways of knowing. And this is a book about that. So how do we go into the imaginal realm and return with reliable data? Is that possible? Especially given that we know that the entities encountered in the dream space can be tricky. We know that there may be con men or demons lurking in the shadows, waiting to cheat us and lead us astray. I'm not saying that these methods are without danger. Should we sometimes allow ourselves to be tricked, to be overtaken, made fools of? Especially given that the trickster is a holy man sometimes who can usefully disrupt our ways of thinking. So this is an illustration of a medieval Arabic anecdote in which a party crasher seems to know the unknown. He has a vision of the unseen, and it turns out that what he has intuited is that there's a party on the other side of town. But this is just one way in which tricksters and holy men really blur into one another in the medieval literature in a way that's constantly leaving us guessing which is which. Can we trust a trickster? Is it a matter of humility, of having a sense of humor, of keeping perspective? Is it a kind of leap of faith? A recognition of an intelligence beyond the grasp of our rational human intelligence? So this is an illustration of a demon named Shauhab, his talisman. He's been kind of popping up in a coincidental fashion ever since I started studying this 13th century book of magic spells in a way that's kind of starting to creep me out a little bit. He's a jinn and a child of Satan is how he's described. I mentioned the jinn, and now I fully expect all the lights in the room to suddenly extinguish or the projector to go. No, that was a trick. That was a trick. Or the projector to go on the fritz as a result. Ask anyone who regularly teaches or speaks in public about such entities. Even the rational materialist among them are likely to tell you it happens all the time and not just as a trick. It does seem to happen. Sir, is it possible to play this video? If you push the play button, is that a doable thing? I have proof. Okay, is there sound? And I'm just raising the question about the line that we're about to walk between scholarship and ritual with this little, here, let me drink some water first. I conjure. That was not a trick. It's not a trick. I had no idea if I was going to be able to do it. Do you think? I'm doing it. I conjure you, O Shauhab, son of Father Bitter, by the right of Satan, and by the right of Lakis, white and black, O mighty one of the severe tormenting dominion. Nikki was there. She saw this really happen. Yeah. Every time I do this kind of poetic invocation of Shauhab in public, which is a translation of this 13th century magic spell, weird things happen. Sure, it's probably just a coincidence, or is it a synchronicity? But it is precisely the kind of thing that makes you pause and think about the ontological status of the entities one encounters in dreams, ritual, magic, and psychedelic experiences. I'd like to ask how the humanities can make room for the radically other than human. I think this is a question a lot of us are wrestling with. I've heard it at other presentations already today. This is a little cartoon where Popeye and Curly are discussing the legal ramifications of marriage with the jinn, and lo and behold, a jinn jumps out of the bushes and weighs in on the matter. It's the sort of thing they do. This is a different kind of unexpected guest, a different level of opening up our doors to the other, and it is not without risk. So I want to emphasize how important it is for me to ground my scholarship first and foremost in, some rigorously tested traditional academic methodology, and for me that is philology, just about the driest, most old-fashioned methodology there is. So I work on medieval Arabic books of magic spells, and I translate, I edit manuscripts, I look words up in the dictionary, I look at how those words were used in other books and the origins of these texts, and philology. That is 100% the foundation of my study of magic and the foundation of this Popeye and Curly cartoons. Actually, all of this is also based on that kind of work. I don't know if our friend David Luke, yay, came, he's on my PowerPoint slide. He came and gave a talk. This is his picture on the psychedelic page and also the same talk on our magic page. And I put him up here because I found that he seemed like he was also balancing between a rigorous application of scientific methods on the one hand and some really boundary-breaking thinking about transpersonal psychology, not to mention quite a bit of practitioner scholarship into the study of psychedelics. So I quite often point to this book by Eric Davis at such moments, in that I feel like what we're searching for here is a way to do what he calls us to do in his high weirdness, to undermine the walls we erect against the questions we can't answer. So I think he's suggesting that the weird is a part of our shared human experience. There's always a limit that we reach at the end of our academic methodologies where we're faced with something truly inexplicable, beyond our rational sort of means of description and understanding. And it's not enough to simply shovel those into a footnote or otherwise hide them. You apply the methodologies to their limit, and then you take the opportunity to actually dwell in that uncertainty, acknowledge the uncertainty, use it as a space perhaps to do some creative responses. I think what you have to avoid doing is attempting to explain it away, look for easy answers, become overconfident that you found the truth, that sort of thing. And I think that this is the way that the study of psychedelics and magic is stretching academic methodologies and actually making them a little bit more appealing to a wider audience, and maybe actually more useful to a wider audience, and a little more human and a little more other than human. Yeah, I'm almost done, thank you. So for me, one way that I do this is I talk about my dreams that I've had a lot in an academic setting. Part of the reason that I do this is because the medieval Arabic scholars that I study take their dreams very seriously. So I feel like if I'm going to take them seriously, then I should respect the types of knowledge that they respect it. This is a dream that I've shared in several public forums about the son of the man who compiled the book of magic spells I've been working on. I copied this directly from my dream journal. I dreamed I met his son. He was writing his father's manuscript, and I reached out my hand to him, and it was like an unfamiliar gesture. Like he wasn't familiar with shaking hands, but he was like, oh, and he took my hand very nicely, and we talked about all the mistakes that were in his father's manuscript, even when it was first written, and how, our attempts to kind of reconstruct this flawed text, and it is ultimately a hopeless thing to do because the text is so corrupt, and it's a book of magic spells. But we read these words that said, don't worry or don't frat, and he admired my cooking, and he was very nice. So to me, this represented, you know, kind of reaching across time and space to take the hand of a fellow human in good faith, to acknowledge that there's things that we don't know, but to try to face that unknown in a spirit of kind of hospitality and goodwill to the other. So if we are going to start out on these risky explorations, I would suggest that we first learn a traditional methodology like philology and let that be our anchor. And then we adopt a kind of ethics of hospitality and kindness and use that as our compass. So if we're wandering in the darkness, we can at least check ourselves and see if, first of all, we're being kind of hospitable and kind. That seems like a fair way to navigate. And I just leave you with this little Popeye and Curly scene where they follow some weirdos to a party. And thank you very much. Thank you.